I'm not here to claim that I'm any special, that I'm actually so gifted that I am actually special, and therefore I have been endowed with things that other people have not been endowed with. I'm here to say that we are the same. That you, if you are an intelligent being, possess the same quality. But why, and this is the question that we started with, why do we have the differences? Why are some people suffering? Why are other people flourishing in immense wealth? It is because of this doctrine, and this is what I call or regard as self-actualization.
According to this idea, it would mean that all human beings are equal.
If you look at it from, again, a lower plane, but if you look at it from now a purely metaphysical, solipsistic perspective, there's no such a thing as human beings. The terminology that defines human being is actually fraught with all forms of limitations.
Yo, juu umechanuka, najua unajua Starlink. But do you know nani amekuwa akiinstollia wasee Starlink across the country? The Sigmoid Group. If you ever need internet installed for your apartment, your single family dwelling home, ushago, whichever part of this country, you need to check out the services, the Sigmoid Group.
The internet has been so reliable, and then when you have an issue and you call someone from Sigmoid, they always answer and resolve the issues quickly.
The Sigmoid Group ni one of the leading ICT solutions companies in the 254, ikiwe ni solar installation, ikiwe ni CCTV installation, uninterrupted power supply. Hiyo nimesikia ni system wanakuwekea yenye hautawahi notice stima ikipotea for hours on end.
You know, I can't stress how good this system has been and actually changed the camp's life. The amount of days we used to have no power, we'd go 2 or 3 days with no power. That doesn't happen at all now. We're pretty much covered the whole way.
Please get in touch with the Sigmoid Group. The contact details tumekuwekea hapa kwa screen. Our guest for this episode is Dr. Joe Mwai, the author of 2 interesting books, The Awakening of Self-Mastery na An Introduction to Metaphysical Solipsism. Dr. Joe Mwai is a metaphysical solipsist, and this is his second appearance on the show. And part of the discussion in our last episode included the understanding of what the soul is, understanding energy. So tunaanza na disclaimer tena. This is a conversation that you need to approach with an open mind. Karibu sana, Dr. Joe.
Asante sana. Thank you so much indeed.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Mm-hmm. So today, I have with me sampled feedback from our audience.
Yes.
Both, it's different reactions.
Yes.
There is criticism. We'll discuss that.
Yes.
We'll discuss the feedback and some of the questions from our audience members.
Yes.
But just to open it up, I believe this would be a good place to start.
Correct.
It's an interesting question that has been thrown around. Why are we here? Okay?
Yeah.
Why are we here comes from a place of we have no decision, we have no input in how we arrive here.
Yes.
Then in that case, why are we here and what is purpose?
I think that's a very, very interesting question, and we couldn't start at a better place than that. The reason is what we believe we know is what has been fed to us. When I grew up, I was told that this is a bottle, that's a glass, and therefore the kind of mental picture that I have of a bottle is what I see, and that's why I can relate to it. That's why I can say, oh, that's a glass, these are glasses, and so on and so forth. If I was told that this is a bottle and this is a glass, that's the way I would know it. So we've been fed with information. There's a lot of contradiction in terms of who we are and why we are here. And most of that contradiction comes from religion, whereby, say, for example, religion says that we came from somewhere, we were created by a higher being, and that higher being is in control of us until we go for judgment. But metaphysical solipsist or solipsism, which is purely the belief that only mind truly exists. Only mind truly exists. mind, as we discussed last time, is the intelligence that makes me me, that gives me my being. So to say that only my intelligence exists shows that I am an intelligent being, more than a human being. And when you come to that, then we then go to the aspect of the infinite universal intelligence, which is the absolute being that is responsible for my being as an intelligent being. And being made in its likeness, I am equally infinite, eternal, and all that follows with an absolute being, or such an absolute being. And on the basis of that, then we can go further on a solipsism perspective, whereby, for example, according to my doctrine, metaphysical solipsism, which is my doctrine, I have sort of explained how I am purely an intelligence being, and that as an intelligence being, then in true essence, I have no form. And I know you would ask me why I would say that I have no form, whereas basically you can see me, you can touch me, you can feel me, and that sort of thing. But this is temporal. But intelligence must have no beginning, must have no end. And therefore, if I'm an intelligence being, then I must have no beginning or no end, because I am intelligence in the likeness of my maker. And as a result of that, then it would show that that which is infinite must occupy everything in every way, and that which is finite, comparatively to that which is infinite, must not exist at all. Now, looking at it from that perspective, then I have come up with a doctrine or a theory that says that I am an intelligent being, which from a religious perspective implies I'm a spiritual being, but I experience a material sense of reality, what I have called in my book, Awakening Self-Mastery, an experiential reality. An experiential reality is a reality that is a construct of my mind, which is very philosophical. A construct of my mind on the basis that being infinite from a spiritual perspective or from an abstract reality perspective, I then create the kind of reality that I want to experience, and hence the reality that surrounds me.
Where are you existing as you create the reality?
We can actually find that from the Bible. I think it's Corinthians. But if we go back to Ephesians, Paul is first of all asking us to awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, that the light of Christ, which is the light of truth, may shine upon you. He then says elsewhere that your spirit is hidden with Christ in God. Now, not was hidden, not will be hidden, but is hidden. And if we use that verse alone, then we see a kind of an oxymoron, a contradiction, a figure of speech on the basis that how can he say that my spirit is hidden with Christ in God, whereas I'm experiencing a reality far away from God, that I believe that I am on earth and God is in heaven, far, far away place. So when we then, from a solipsistic perspective, sort of analyze that reality, we see a form of a truth that is hidden in plain sight, which shows that I am right now, spiritually, in heaven. But due to the ability, the power that is endowed me, I have the power to create this kind of reality. Now, when I say that, someone might actually think, wow, what's he on about? Because it doesn't appear real. But look at the perspective of our creation, of the book of, in the Bible, book of Genesis, I think it's chapter 2, verse 6, which says, and God said, in quote, let us make man in our image, in our likeness. Now, a metaphysical interpretation of the image of God is in the infinite realm of God. In the likeness of God is similar to how your reflection is when you stand in front of a mirror. And if I'm made in the likeness of my maker, which maker is the absolute being or the universal intelligence, which is what I think religions regard or refer to as omniscience, the all-knowingness of God, then I'm all-knowing. Then I must have all the qualities of God, similar to my reflection in the mirror. Then it implies that I have all the qualities of my God, all the characteristics and attributes. So if my maker is omnipresence, then I must actually present him in every way. I must be omnipresence. If my maker is all-powerful, I must be all-powerful, similar to my reflection in the mirror. My reflection in the mirror cannot portray a sort of a picture, an image of a lesser being than my own being. And that implies that if I have a billion threads of hair, then the reflection, my reflection in the mirror, has a billion threads of, it can't have one more, one less hair. Anything that I have is reflected 100% in the mirror. And I believe, before I finish, that to begin with, even for any as intelligence being, we must, and we have been fed, or we've been told about God, our maker, and if we are to believe that the Bible is true, that perspective alone is enough for us to take us back to where we came from, and also to awaken to the infinite intelligence, infinite power that we possess. So from a solipsistic perspective, that's how I see myself as the creator of the material sense of reality, which is a construct of my mind. And from a philosophical perspective, that it only appears in my mind.
Okay. So if you are, if you exist in a spiritual world and you're experiencing yourself in a material world, right? Does it mean that we are one, or we are different beings in the spiritual world, projecting different people, or it is one being projecting different variations?
You know, the most amazing thing, Dr. Harry, is that the reason why we believe that we are sort of a multiplicity of individuated beings is on the basis of what we experience through the sense of sight, for example. If I did not have my sense of sight, and you are all here but quiet, I wouldn't know that you exist, would I? If I did not hear you, if I was deaf, if I did not have any of the 5 common or corporeal senses, I wouldn't know that you exist. But now, from a solipsistic perspective, I consider a very good example of a drop of water from the ocean. Now, if you went to Mombasa, Indian Ocean, and picked up a drop of water, that drop of water would be individuated, and that's what we say is a drop of water. But it would have all the characteristics, all the qualities of the infinite ocean in equal measure, apart from the degree, quantity. But what happens when we put that same drop of water back into the ocean? Can we any longer say that the drop of water is here? It becomes a part, or it become a part of the infinite individual whole ocean. Now, when we awaken, when I, as a solipsist, to believe that I'm made in the likeness of my maker, awakens or fully awakens to that reality, then I become totally in the likeness of my maker, infinite, eternal, immortal, incorporeal, indubitable, immutable, name it, all the qualities that you can think of an absolute being. And therefore, from that perspective, the experience of individuated beings disappears, equally to the experience of a material sense of reality, which is everything the opposite of spirituality. I think the last time when we had a conversation here, Dr. Kengori, I addressed the perspective of that material sense of reality, matter versus spirit, and I showed, and it's very sort of very apparent in my books. I showed that if you take a piece of paper, draw a line in the middle, and write on one side matter and the other side spirit, you would find that every quality of matter is the very opposite of spirituality. For example, matter is finite, spirit is infinite. Matter is corporeal, it has body. Spirit is incorporeal. Matter dies, it's mortal. Spirit is immortal. So everything about, about matter is the opposite of spirituality. And as a result of that, then there is a bit of a challenge, and that's actually how we, from a solipsistic perspective, I look at sort of that form of reality.
Okay. And if in the spirit world, you are experiencing a material world, like the reality is in the spirit world, and this is just a projection, right? Then how do you now explain the variations? Someone has a good life, and someone else doesn't. If the material world, the spirit world is standard, right?
Yes.
Why would you project yourself to suffering?
That's a very good question, Dr. Kingori. Now, if you read my first book that I showcased here during my last last conversation with you, titled The Absolute Being, _ Man's Essence and the Power of the I. I have expounded on that point very extensively, whereby I have shown, and I think one of the most challenging aspects for laymen would actually be to understand that you can actually look at life from your singularity perspective as the I in me, and just in the same manner I've explained about the drop of water. So a solipsist does not address the aspect of individuated being or material sense of reality from a material perspective, because you can't get it right. So we address it from a spiritual, what I would call a spiritual perspective, which is the intelligence perspective, whereby then after awakening to who I am, I have actually become a part of the infinite whole. And as a result of that, I then sort of focus on the perspective of my ability to create an experiential reality, which now I experience as a material sense of reality. Now, that from a solipsist perspective is based on the perspective that most of what I experience is as a result of what I am fed by my external senses. And in my first book, I showcase that as miscreation due to hidden ideas of an external sense. I think we addressed that last time. If now we hid ideas of internal sense, we will create an experiential reality of an abstract nature. Remember the aesthetic of beauty, the aesthetic beauty of colors, for example. That is actually a beauty that is perceived by mind. And that's why you see, especially in the Western world, artists or experts of artistic material, like images and that sort of thing, will look into great details. If you look, for example, the image or the picture of Mona Lisa, the original one is valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. But then you can go to another part of the world where somebody can easily pass by without any regard for that, because they haven't sort of awakened to that aesthetic beauty which is found in the abstract reality of the mind, from the mind. And that is actually the difference.
If I got you correctly, the Mona Lisa painting,
yes,
in the US, France, European countries, is valued for millions of dollars.
Yes.
If you take it to, let's say, name a country that does not have regard for art.
Yes.
Say Botswana, for example.
Yes.
They wouldn't care.
They would pass it for, they would actually prefer a real photo from a camera.
but then again, that falls into the realm of subjective reality. That's the same concept as money. Its value is, you could say the same. Oh, you're right.
So basically, that's another topic. If we deviate into that topic, we'll actually sort of regress. But if I can just point out what I mean by that is that we say that reality is a product of our imagination. And that is how, again, we create our own reality. Someone who has taken time to study, to observe that image, that photo, that picture of Mona Lisa, starts to identify aesthetic beauty, starts to identify value in the artist. You know, the way the smile is, the way the curves are, and all that sort of things into detail. The challenge to the person in Botswana is that they are not analytical. Whereas a person from, say, a country that values art would actually take the image and analyze it with the lens of microscopic lens of understanding from an artistic perspective, whereas the person from Botswana possibly looked at it holistically as, well, it's just an image.
Let me break the example to a simpler one.
Yes.
Right? To discuss reality versus subjective reality. This building right here is worth billions of Kenya shillings,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But the owner who owns it,
Yes.
right? The only claim to ownership
Yes.
is the piece of paper,
Correct.
which it is written that he owns it,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And the piece of paper is validated
Yes.
by virtue of the fact that other people believe
Yes.
that this paper is the ownership.
That's right.
If you buy a piece of land, ownership of that piece of land is not you putting it in your pocket.
Yes.
It's the paper that has your
Correct.
name
Correct.
that says you own it,
Correct.
and the fact that other people believe
Yes.
this paper means you own it.
Absolutely. If, say, for example, that's a very good example, valid example. If that piece of paper constituting the title deed or the architectural drawing of this building was to be dropped somewhere in the streets, and a layman finds it, they can even use it to light the fire, because as long as they're concerned, it's a piece of paper. But if it is picked up by a QS, an architect, a contractor, or any other individual, a specialized professional, they would analyze that document. They would take an interest to understand what it is. And then they will start to see some aspects, some qualities that gives that piece of paper so much value to the value of this building. That's the difference.
So your reality is your reality matches what you have allowed your mind to experience or
Yes,
believe.
absolutely. And that's where we go. That's where we have all the variations. But now coming back to the perspective of the drop of water, the reason why I believe that we are around 8 billion people in this world is because of the ideas that are fed to my mind by my 5 common or external senses.
But it may not be actually 8 billion, but there is mathematics. Mathematics as a concept, we say numbers don't lie. If you have this bottle, and this bottle, that means this is 3 bottles. Is it 3 bottles in my mind, or these are actually 3 bottles?
Now, let's do a thought experiment. Let's close your eyes. Now, don't touch, but tell me how many bottles are on the table.
If I had the movement of 1 bottle, I'm assuming there are 2 bottles remaining on the table.
Open your eyes. What does that mean? That means that what we think we know is what has been fed to the I in me, or my mind, is not external. It is internal. And if we take an example to understand how the eye operates. The eye simply picks up colors and feeds that to the optic nerve at the back of the eyeball. The optic nerves, which constitute of about, it is said, billions of nerves, translate those colors into electrical signals and transmit those electrical signals to the back of the brain, known as the occipital lobe. The occipital lobe retranslates those electric signals into an image. But up to that point, the brain does not know or is not able to relate that image with any experience. It goes to the part of the brain that stores mind that stores memory and does computer matching. And that's how I'm able to say, oh, Dr. Kingori, I met with you last time. Because it works so fast. So computer matching, Dr. Kingori. If we stayed for about 10, 15 years without meeting and we only met once, I'll be hard put to remember who you are. And at that point, it's not that I'm just trying to remember, but I'm actually my brain is trying to do computer matching with so many images. And because a lot of experience has actually taken place of many different people, I'm trying to compare and I can't actually recall. Until I say, oh, no, we met 15 years ago. So I've gone back to my memory bank and have actually found your image, compared that, and based on the interaction, how I knew, then I am able to remember and say, Dr. Kingori.
Is there a possibility that what I'm seeing in this bottle could be different with what you're seeing?
There are all possibilities, especially within the realm of a material sense of reality, because as we said, it's actually an experiential reality that is created by my mind, by your mind, if you exist, because from a spiritual perspective, I can't say that you exist. The only reason I'm able to say that you exist is because my mind is like, my brain is actually feeding me with ideas of now you in the manner that I explained, and it's being fed into my mind, and based on the information, prior information or sort of knowledge I have, I'm able to say that Dr. Kingori exists. But let's look at it this way. If, say, for example, a person, and I'm sorry to use this example, I hate using it, but let's use it for purposes of understanding. If a person is congenitally born without the sense of sight, do we say that the person is less of a human being simply because of that?
No.
He is still a human being, but with less advantages on experiencing the material sense of reality as we know it. Let us take the same person and assume that he's also congenitally blind without the sense of, deaf without the sense of sound. So that person cannot see and cannot hear. And I think we discussed about this last time. So he cannot see, the person cannot see, the person cannot hear. The only way that that person is able to relate with the world is through the sense of touch, the sense of smell, and the sense of taste. But if we keep on reducing them, then can we go at some point and say that the person is less a human being? No. But what happened is that the person ceases existing in this realm because he's not in touch with this realm. And this is what usually happens when you say the person has gone to be with the Lord, or the person has died, the person has passed on. What we see the body. But that body, it has everything. The eyes are still there, the ears are still there, the brain is still there. The only thing that is not happening is that that person is not breathing, which means that even breathing is controlled by something beyond that body. The person cannot think, cannot talk, and that sort of thing. And that has ceased operating is the I in me, is the sort of intelligence in me, and that is what religions call the spiritual aspect of your being.
In which case, if a person cannot see and a person cannot hear, right? It means we go back to you project what has been fed to you, right? So what has been fed to you has to exist first so that it gets fed to you. Because if the spirit world only existed and we are a projection, it means the spirit world, the person may not need the eyes or the ears. They could have a projection of what? They could have a projection of what they are experiencing.
From a solipsist does not believe in existence of a spiritual world or a material world. A solipsist believe in the existence of intelligence. And that intelligence, which is infinite as well as eternal, is responsible for creating any form of reality. Okay? So,
I understand.
Yes.
So this person who does not have the senses, who has limited senses, of the 5 senses, they probably don't have 2 main ones, okay?
Yes.
If the intelligence creates the projection, right?
Yes.
It means it should create those projections independent of the senses too.
It means that the ability of mind to create is either abused or it is it is used wrongly. Now, the reason why I say that, if we take a very small example, very sort of a common example of 2 people who are born from the same family. Say, let's say, for example, 2 twins are born from the same mother and the same father from a very poor family background. When they grow up, one of them decide and says in his mind, based on what I've experienced here, I will never want my children to suffer want. And therefore, he is taken to school and he's told that if you get a good education, you can change your life. And he put all his mind into books. And surely and behold, he goes, he passes his sort of a primary education, secondary education, goes to the university, and eventually become a lawyer, for example. And then after becoming a lawyer, he now wants to represent his people. He becomes an MP and possibly goes on to become a president. That man's life is changed. But let's look at the other twin. The other twin looked at her life and actually said, "Oh my goodness! Based on what my parents have gone through, I have no hope of ever making it." And therefore does not put effort in books. And as a result of that, after primary, he drops out because he can't go to secondary. And as a result, the person can only wait for someone who's fortunate and is working in the dark corner when they're coming home and actually sort of, sort of rob them of money because he's desperate. He thinks that life is not fair, the world is against him, and there's no other way of him making it. But look at the difference. These are 2 people who are brought up in the same environment, but they grow differently. So what changed? What the difference? The difference is in mind. And this is why we are told by motivational speakers that we have power beyond measure. And you're told, if only you believe. And surely there are those people who believe and they actually make it as a result. And they will say, do you remember that motivational talk that we went through 10 years ago, Dr. Ari? Yeah, that's the one that changed my life.
But we'll be venturing into the fields of terminologies because if I go with the example of those 2 twins, right? Yeah. There's another probabilistic outcome in this example. They could both go through school, study hard, get the same grades, but due to different circumstances, get different opportunities. One would succeed and get the better life, one wouldn't. And it wouldn't be because they decided not to follow education. We'll be going to the field of definitions because we will be dealing with certain principles that are there in the world in terms of success, placement, and luck.
All along, that's a possibility. But all along, we would be able to trace the 2 differences from the mental perspective, the mental attitude. If both of them have the same positive mental attitude, they will surely succeed, though in different fields. That is the law of success. It is that simple.
Up to that point, in terms of thinking, based on text I've been exposed to in terms of the power of thinking and combinations, I agree with you.
Yes.
But then again,
yes.
we have people who think,
Yes.
and however hard you think,
Yes.
still the principles, there are certain variables that determine whether the same formula will work for one person
Yes.
and will not work for another person, despite the constant factor of thought and mental attitude being constant.
The reason for that is because thinking is not just general thinking, in my opinion, from a solipsistic perspective. Now, thinking is also soul searching. I could fail to succeed because I would think that the reason why Dr. Kingori has succeeded is because of the camera, and therefore want to become a cameraman or set up such a studio, and therefore go and invest in areas that have no specialization. Now, I realized sort of my self-actualization, or the route to my self-actualization, after many years of toiling. I have been sort of a researcher of metaphysical solipsism for over 25 years. Now, but if I came to realize, and today I feel that if I started this journey from school, I don't even know where I would be today, because this is my area. Now, in the last 3, 4, I would say about 5 years, I've actually written about 6, going to 7 books now. Supposing I realized my my gift at an earlier stage, how many books would I have written? Look at Gogo Wadiongo, the late Professor Gogo Wadiongo, God rest his soul. Look at him, the number of books that he's written. I think over 27. He's actually in excess of 27 books. But he started the journey at the right time. So sometimes we fail because we don't take time to sort of research, discover ourselves, discover our callings, and therefore we just venture into things and we get it wrong because it's not our area.
When you mentioned the late Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o, you said, may God rest his soul. What does that mean from a metaphysical solipsist perspective?
From a metaphysical solipsism, I come from a background, and I say that because I wouldn't want to sit here and sort of appear to insult the families by saying something different regarding an individual, and that is why I sort of
let's remove him from that context. What does that mean from may God rest his soul, okay?
Yes.
As people say, right? But from a metaphysical perspective, what does may God rest his soul mean?
Death is only to the material sense of reality. Remember the line that we drew, matter on one side, spirit on another side. Now, if I'm a spiritual being, which is intelligence being, then my intelligence will not die. But the experience of death is the experience that I have created or allowed to happen due to hidden ideas of an external nature. Okay? But if I heeded the ideas of internal nature, I know that mind does not die, because mind is intelligence, and intelligence does not die. Intelligence is eternal. I say it's immortal. And therefore, if I looked at myself from that perspective, then there is no death, there is no suffering, there is no pain, there is nothing. And this is what religions promise us when we leave this realm of existence.
Let me bring you to a concept that let's turn back to biology to explain existence. Twende statement by statement. Is it accurate to say that, let me throw around a figure, 10,000 years ago, this is one of my favorite examples lately, 10,000 years ago,
Yes.
from you, your father, his father before him, his father before him, 10,000 years ago, there is someone who survived, who is the reason you're here today.
That is actually, and this is where solipsism is difficult. I remember I had a sort of a Roundtable conference early this year in February at Zetech University, and one of the guest speakers, who is a philosopher and a professor of philosophy, said that I don't know, in quotes, I don't know how you embrace philosophy. I encountered, sorry, not philosophy, solipsism. I encountered solipsism when I was doing my doctoral degree, and I had to actually let it go. The reason for that is because if you look at things, if you actually try to understand solipsism from a sort of material sense of reality, it doesn't make sense. It only makes sense when we alienate ourselves from a material sense of being into our intelligence aspect of being, whereby we are then able to understand, to remove, to sort of dissect and separate the Siamese twins in terms of material sense of reality and an intelligence perspective or a spiritual sense of reality. Now, the way we are able to do that is by looking at sort of the values of the two in the manner that I explained, where spirituality is infinite and eternal, matter changes form, is finite and mortal. So if, say for example, let me delve a bit on the perspective of infinity. Infinity is without a beginning, without an end. And if you compare something that is finite, in the wake of that is that which is in existence, that which is finite disappears totally. Similar to Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, when he saw himself running after the speed of light, only to realize that everything freezes in time in the wake of a receding light. Now, that happened because the speed of light is so fast that if anything was to actually compete with the speed of light or to reach the speed of light, it would have to use infinite amount of energy to push it forward, which is impossible. And that is how Albert Einstein came with the theory of relativity. Now, that has a lot of meaning to a solipsist on the basis that we then look at sort of infinity from that perspective. And it is only through understanding infinity from that perspective that you are able to see the the finiteness of matter and the illusion or illusion of matter. Now, Albert Einstein, for him to understand it, he remembered a comic book that he had read at the age of 16, that he had read when he was 11, where in the comic book, the character was trying to race after the speed of light, and he took himself in the shoes of that character. But then he changed it in his thought experiment by now seeing himself riding on a photon, which is the the particle that makes light. And it is when he was riding the photon that he realized that everything, including time, froze in the wake of a speeding light. So if he did not see himself on a photon, he wouldn't have actually discovered that theory. And therefore, we would be very different without the relativity theory.
You know, I agree with you on intelligence. 100% higher intelligence,
Yes.
Because when you observe the world in most areas, you see patterns and you see balance, right?
Yes.
You see patterns and you see balance.
Yes.
All right. Even in suggestions, even in movies, it's been there are suggestions. There is balance everywhere.
Yes.
There is death. There is birth. There is loss, there is gain, there is balance.
Yes.
There is seasons and everything. We come back to separating the spiritual world from material reality. First of all, let's go back. The example of this building or this glass as we see it, or this book.
Yes.
This glass first existed in thought before it became a reality. This building was a thought before it was put on paper and then translated to reality. But it means when you see the reality, there should be a path to trace back to the thought.
Yes. And that actually falls squarely to the saying that reality is the product of our imagination, which implication in its truest sense is that without imagining, the ability to imagine, there's no reality. If I ceased existing in this realm, I can no longer say that this realm exists. And it is as simple as that.
Back to intelligence. we've done a documentary uploaded on this same channel.
Yes.
On a spam bank, right?
Yes.
And during the production of that film or video or documentary,
Yes.
we found it was interesting to find out that the sperm, the seed that makes a human being, also carries data.
Yes.
Just the same way a computer memory card does. And I believe it's 100 GB of data, right?
Yes.
And my interpretation of this was very simple. This is the formation of you, the person. This is the formation of personality. This is the formation of experiences. This is the formation of the composition of you as a person. And this is where your DNA matches those who came before you, right? Yes. So we sitting here today, in the example of 10,000 years ago, there was a person who, because they survived,
yes,
we are today. And if they were to be tested and us today, many things would match, right? Yes. So my explanation would be, and this is my justification for intelligence, God in his infinite wisdom found a formula of mass production, right? Like,
wrong.
Yeah, for real. He's found a formula, brilliant formula of mass production. Instead of creating people from scratch every time.
That's when we now conform to what has been fed to us. Now, a solipsist is trying to separate what has been fed to their minds with what they now can see through the power of their mind. And that makes all the difference. So when you say that God decided to make, mass produce or mass create what we think are people and that sort of thing, then we separate from solipsism. We separate from solipsism on the basis that I started with earlier on, the example of the drop of water, the perspective of who I am, not as a human being with sort of all forms of limitations, but as a celestial being, an intelligence without limitations. And if the world is to advance, and especially we from this part of the world, if we are to advance, if we are to compete with the rest of the world, we must abandon the belief that holds us back and embrace the belief that I am responsible for my own future, I'm responsible for my own experiences, and that I'm responsible for what my mind has created. Now, it is only to that perspective that we can even understand and accept and conform to the saying that you are the master of your destiny and the captain of your soul. So how do you say that you're the captain, the master of your destiny, whilst you still believe that your destiny has been coined or is in control of an external being more powerful than you, that is seated somewhere, that determines whether tomorrow you'll be happy or sad, that whether tomorrow you'll be wealthy and not wealthy? Okay? And how can you then say that you are the captain of your soul, whereas you still believe that your soul is in the control of the same external being? Now, a solipsist is here to change the mindset of humanity, to awaken to the latent potential power that lies beneath or inside you, inside I, inside the audience. And from there, start to look for ways, for example, through such a book on how I can awaken that power.
Makes sense. But how do you know that what you're saying is any different from a Christian who has read the Bible? How do you know that your reality in this context is what your mind has been fed?
Dr. Kingori, if you bring the perspective of the Bible here, you'll be surprised. And I wouldn't want to repeat it. It's actually found in my first book, The Absolute Being. double hyphen, man's essence, and the power of the I. And it's as a result of research upon research on the contradictions that we find in the Bible. And therefore, man, there's something I love, and I think in the Bible I have very few things that I agree with, but things that are very essential. One of them is the first creation. Let us make man in our likeness, in our image.
You agree
Thus,
with that?
man become a living being. Yes, the first one. Remember, there are two perspectives of our creations, where you are first of all made in the likeness of your maker, who is spirit in every way and spiritual in every way. And then after that, you come to another creation where now that maker appear to have form and comes from his infinite realm, an impossibility, an oxymoron, and fit into a material sense of reality and appear to now have form, and goes to the extent of taking mud, dust of the earth, the lowest quality. I wish they were talking of taking gold to mold, a body, and then put some nostrils and breathe the breath of life. Those are two different and distinctive creations. So when you believe in the first creation, why would a creator create one in his likeness and his image, and then finishes the work within the sixth day, and rest the seventh day, and then goes ahead and start the same thing again? And now with the second creation, we see the imperfection of the creator and the imperfection of man.
That is taking it from a literal perspective, okay? In my opinion, the difference between you and a staunch Christian is how much both of you took from the Bible. You just took, I would say, you just took the points that support solipsism, two of them or three they may be, and the Christian chose to take everything as it came.
Exactly my point, Dr. Harry. And the reason why I say that is, if I go to other perspective of the Bible, and you are seeing within the social media, young people are so confused, and there are some who are asking, if God is omnipresent, if God is love, if God is kind, how could he also be a jealous God? What is he jealous of? That's in the Bible.
I agree.
Yes.
I understand that. And that's why I said, if you interpret that from a literal perspective, my point was just to respond to the example of that, like creating from that.
Yes.
In our last episode, I gave you an example whereby when someone gets buried, right? They actually say soil goes back to soil, right?
Yes.
And you get absorbed.
Dust goes to dust.
Yes. You get absorbed, and then again, when you become one with the earth, right? You can get your way back into the system.
But is it you, the intelligence in you, the spirit in you, that actually metamorphoses, or is it the body that is believed to house that spirit?
From a biological perspective, that would be qualified if we were to follow the process, right? In terms of, let's say, someone's grandfather or great-grandfather becomes manure and finds their way into a sweet potato, right? You consume that, that becomes the composition of what feeds your brain.
But we can immediately that we bring that into the equation, we see the contradiction in it on the basis that then the Bible lies when it says that man leaves the body and goes back to his maker. So what goes back to the maker? If we believe, or we take on that
is,
belief.
if we go with the literal perspective. The Bible has been described as a metaphorical book, right?
So I totally agree with that.
But then that example of that going back to that makes absolute sense. It's recycling,
which is the perspective of the five corporeal senses.
Exactly, and I would be curious. I would be curious to know when you eat your food, for example.
Yes.
When you eat your food,
yes.
Okay, you're very careful of the calories and the composition on the proteins that you're taking, right? They get absorbed to your body. They become you. They become your function. Let's go back to. Let's say the seed of a human being, right? The seed of a human being being data, like 100 GB. It is composition. When we go back to science, this is pure chemistry, right?
Yes.
It means you can be recycled back to your existent in that same direction. If someone decided to pursue that idea, I believe you can actually trace the cycle.
That I agree with that to a certain extent, only to the extent that I will look at it. I'm looking at that perspective of reality from a material sense of reality. And that's the only time that it makes sense. But when I look at it now from a higher plane of existence, my intelligence perspective or my spiritual, from a spiritual realm, then that does not hold water at all. Now, on the basis of, again, the quotation where, say, for example, the example of is a proverb which says, as a man think in their mind, so they are. And that actually fits in very well with the other saying that reality is a product of our imagination. And that means that the only reason why I believe this to be real is because I've allowed it to take form in my mind. Mind, which is eternal, is infinite and does not die, is everything. And up to that perspective, anything else that is the opposite of that mind then becomes non-existence. And it becomes non-existence on the basis of our understanding infinities. One of the worst mistakes that physical science made or has made is the belief that man's mind has no ability to conceptualize infinities.
But these ideas only hold water when we stick to human beings as the only animals that exist, right? I saw a documentary on YouTube where someone, and I forget his name, he holds the biggest ranch in the world, I believe 2 million acres, right? And in these 2 million acres, I don't know kama it's the cow. There's a certain kind of cow, a bull, a certain cow in the US. He holds the largest private population in his conservancy. And by his commitment from the 70s, 80s there, to date, his decision to bring those animals into his conservancy has brought a whole ecosystem, including the land rehabilitation, the vegetation, other animals that has disappeared are coming back, right? That had nothing to, you would assume had nothing to do with this particular animal that they bring. So this tells you that God in his design, and I'll quote God a lot here, because he is the ultimate intelligence that we know, okay? God in his design created a system that the world can be sustainable, which goes back to my idea of mass production.
When you cite that example, you disagree with solipsism on the basis that the reality that we experience, according to a solipsist, is a construct of their mind. This reality, for example, here, is on the basis that my mind has created this. Now, the material sense of reality represented by the physical universe, which is so huge that light takes 94 billion years to traverse across, traveling at a speed of 300,000 kilometers a second, is a construct of your mind. And what I usually, when I am motivating my audience, what I usually do is to tell them to assume, even hypothetically, that this could be real. Just imagine that this was real. And even if you don't believe in it, but imagine that it was real, then it would show you how powerful you are. If you have power to create this reality, to create the material sense of reality, then you are powerful beyond measure. And is that unbiblical? No, it's not. Because the same God says that I have blessed you with all the blessings on high, and there is nothing denied. In fact, Paul goes ahead in the book of Corinthians to actually say that you have been given the mind that was in Christ. The same Christ that performed miracles that we are told cannot even fill any book on earth.
You have read the Bible extensively, but you made sure to retain the points that support solipsism only, and you left the rest for Christians.
And I'm very proud of that, Dr. Harry. The reason why I'm so proud is because if you read the first 500 years of 300 years of Christianity, and you can Google, you will find that the same people that purported to join the spreading of the gospel that was started by the disciples or Jesus himself did not do that because he loved or he was converted, even though the Romans say that Constantine sort of saw the light and was converted. But they did that after fighting this doctrine or this spread of the gospel for 300 years. For what reason? For the reason that the disciples, then the followers, the believers were saying that Jesus had promised them that he will come back, he will take his church and rule it for 1,000 years. And therefore, the Roman Empire, which had ruled for over 400 years, implied that it was to come to an end. And they had to defend it to the ground, to the last man. And this is what they tried to do. But they realized that no matter how much they tried, it was still spreading. And therefore, if you can't beat them, join them. And as a result of that, we see them now sort of correcting purported books of the apostles and the disciples and putting them into the first book that they call the Bible, which was first written in Latin. But remember, for the 300 years that they were fighting this sort of gospel as it was spreading, they were collecting all the books of Paul. In fact, if you Google, you will find that over 95% of the books of Paul in the New Testament were written by that party. Now, they did this in order for them to preserve their empire. And this is why you find that they are actually saying that God is actually saying, telling the Jewish people who are slave masters that it is okay to beat a slave as long as the slave does not die within 3 days. This is why we find the same Bible telling us that it's okay, sort of commanding a slave to obey its master. This is why we find, for example, Paul, when he was in places like Galatia and all that, when he was writing book, he would say, I've had to actually meet with the people of Galatia, putting that as an example, and I have had to meet with them every day to discuss the doctrine. And if you follow the first, the disciples, when they were actually preaching, they would meet every day, and then they will go sell, people will go sell their land and bring everything into the church. So this was affecting the empire, the Roman Empire, and they had to put a stop to that by hook or crook.
There's just to respond to that, what some selective verses say. When you look at the Kenyan law, okay? It has been argued that some laws are very primitive and punitive because they were written at a different time for different people. For example, if you go to the bylaws of the city, you'll find things like it is illegal to wash your car in the state. It is illegal to paint your gate, right? These are laws that some people have argued were created in circumstantial situations. This happened. Someone saw this and they responded and they reacted to write a law that fits a certain perspective. It is you who said on this platform again that there is a rumor, and I think we should have dropped it from a rumor last time, that theologians are planning on how to edit the Bible again to fit certain contexts based on scientific findings.
Correct. It's not a rumor. It's actually a debate, an ongoing debate. We've also seen, for example, with the apps that we download to actually read in our computers, our phones and all that, that some verses, for example, it is actually believed almost 40 verses have been expugned. Verses with the homosexuality and all that, you can no longer find them in the new, in the apps that we download. You only find them in the, from the Bibles that were written a long time ago.
Exactly. So 1,000 years from now, probably people will interact with the Bible differently. So when you look at the Bible as a constitution of Christianity, right? Assuming we look we look at it from a metaphysical solipsist perspective, right?
Yes.
And the designer of this building could have created from thought, right, the blueprint for this building.
Yes.
But if, as a human being, they made an error, right, in producing that, as human is to error, you cannot fault the thought where it comes from. In this sense, if, as we say, the Bible was inspired by the Word of God, you cannot dismiss the Bible on the basis of some verses say this, which is against the doctrine of Christianity, whereas it is possible and human beings have been found to make things convenient to favor them. The same way you would look at the Bible and only choose the verses that support metaphysical solipsism.
Can I tell you something, Dr. Kingori? When you present that to the Gen Zs, you confuse them the more. They are already a confused lot. You know why they are already a confused lot? Because they do ask questions, not the way we were brought up, believing everything that was bombarded to us, especially the aspect of God. We would be told that anything that is any matter about God, leave it alone. And that's why you find some of the preachers doing funny things in churches, and yet they are still carrying on. Now, what we need to understand is that from not just from a perspective of a solipsist, but from an intellectual perspective, there are so many areas and issues that are pertaining to the Bible and the Word of God that is purported to have been inspired by the Holy Spirit, that today does not make sense at all. And it's a lot, and that's why there's that discussion to actually rewrite the Bible. Now, now, if we look, for example, at the depicted sort of age of the Earth, of the universe is actually said to be 6,000 years, whereas we have evidence that the oldest skull of a human being is over 2 million years. So look at all this. Now, again, if you consider that the colonizers, when they came to colonize Africa, they brought a religion that sort of disoriented our black people, our forefathers, on the basis that they would tell them not to focus upon, in my mother tongue, the herds, cows, cattle, farm. They were told those ones do not matter. That what matters is actually the spirit or the glory of Jesus. And they were therefore told that their wealth is hidden somewhere in heaven. And as a result of that, we even have people even today who are waiting for their wealth, to enjoy their wealth when they go to heaven. And the question that comes across Gen Z and solipsist is, why then does he keep me here to suffer? Why doesn't he take me to, why bring, for example, the King of England or Bill Gates or this Tesla guy, who are so wealthy, to enjoy their wealth here. And they're also given hope that they will still enjoy wealth upstairs. And not me. And why keep me here? So if you look at those points, you will see something is wrong. And we have to understand, and this is what Gogewa Thiong'o was, Professor Gogewa Thiong'o meant when he actually talked about the decolonization of mind. Because we've been made believe that. And this is why you see people going to churches to be prayed for in order to buy a car, buy land, and that sort of thing. And you saw, I don't know whether you saw on social media, this PCA priest, the lady, who is now actually advising someone who has loans and is struggling to pay to go and look for 10% of the loan, bring it to church so that God can help the person repay the loan. That is pure madness.
Can I make a submission on that?
Please do.
Let me take it back from when you say Gen Z may be a confused generation because of what they are seeing. My submission for that is very simple. We are in the age of information. right?
Yes.
If we go by your submission in our last episode that we have existed before, right? We have existed before. This is in the concept of reincarnation, and there is nothing like death, right? In the period, let's say if you existed in 1920, okay, you are probably a bishop because of your capacity to embrace doctrine, okay? The difference between you, if you existed then,
Yes.
and you that exists today is the information you've been exposed to, right? My submission to back that up is human beings, we have a system of capitalism, right?
Yes.
If you are a student of history, we come from hunter-gatherer society, right?
Yes.
Where resources are infinite and available, right? Because there is wild animals, there is farming, the people who want to farm, there is fish. In fact, one of my favorite examples of late is America as a land where people see as a land of opportunities, has not even developed 5% of their land. Let's be generous, 10%, right?
Yes.
And it is said that the whole world population, the population of 8 billion, can fit in America comfortably, right? So that's just to lay context that there's enough for everyone. So for the system of capitalism to exist, right, the few must exploit the many, right?
Can I cut you short for a reason, for a very, very good reason? The reason for that is that is not the gospel that we should be giving our audience.
I understand, but I want to qualify my submission. I want to qualify the submission that Gen Zs are not different from the so-called .com generation or the different generation. The difference, first of all, knowledge is the most scarce resource, right? But we are in the age of information, right? So it's very difficult to exploit people today with the same ideas that were used in 1920, in 1970, right? In 1920, in the 1950s, right? 40s, 50s, right? Mzee Jomo Kenyatta got an opportunity to go to England, where you are a resident, right? And he got a chance to be a president of this country, right? Only because he could speak better English, right? Today, with the population, age of information, spread of resources, can English, a degree itself, a university degree, does not guarantee you a job. But there was a time a Form 4 certificate would get you head-hunted in school for a job, right? Bring this to the context of, let's say, young people today. The Bible not making sense. Assuming there are people who use the Bible to conveniently spread a doctrine of control, right? Doesn't that submission make sense? That the ideas that were used then cannot be used today. So that's probably why some people are debating on how to edit that to accommodate the generations that come.
It's a good way of actually sort of justifying that. But there is, when we talk of evolution, because what you're talking about is evolution, the reason why things are different from the way they were in the yesteryears, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, is the aspect of evolution of the mind of man, correct? Whereby today we have so much advancement in technology that the common life of today was a life that was fit for a king 50 or 100 years ago.
100%.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, and this is now the perspective of the mind of man. And these are purely a minority in the general sort of population of the world. The few that are regarded as geniuses who come up with technology, invention, discoveries, and that sort of thing, and help change the world. But look at the kind of lives that they live as a result of their intelligence, as a result of their intellectuality. Now, what solipsism is here to do is to tell everybody that you're a genius, you have geniusity. You don't have to listen to the information that we've been brought up with or you've been fed with for the last 20 years. But all you need to do sort of borrowing from the words that were said by Jesus, is to go to your secret place, which is your mind, and talk to your Father, the infinite universal intelligence, the absolute being, and pray for whatever it is that you want, and He will bless you. And this is the perspective of focusing on your mind until you awaken your geniusity and you become a writer, you become a solipsist, you become a media personality, you become a discoverer, you become everything or anything that can actually be due to the power of your mind. Because the gospel is simple. The gospel is that you are powerful beyond measure. You are the highest representative of your maker, whoever you believe him to be. And as a result of that, you don't even need to get actually, for example, when Jesus said that the praying is not by the mumbling of words, he actually cited the example of those people who go to the marketplace to actually pray that they can be heard. But he said, when you pray, when you want to pray, go to your secret place. It's not in your bedroom. It's not in your special room. It's not in church. It is in your mind. And praying with your mind is focusing, is actually processing of thought, is desiring. When you desire that, the book called The Alchemist says that the whole universe comes together to help you achieve what you so desire. And this is what Jesus meant when he said, whatsoever thing ye shall desire, when you pray, believing, it shall be given unto you. And this is how we are blessed with all the blessings on high, with nothing denied. This is how we are made in the likeness of our Maker, to simply become the highest representative. So that gospel is the gospel that we should be giving to our Gen Zs and the younger generation, and anybody who is looking to awaken and to change their lives. Mind is everything, and mind is actually your intelligence. And if you believe that you have mind, or in your mind, then you are a solipsist. You are a solipsist on the basis that of that belief. And all that you need then to do is to focus on the power of your mind and to utilize it, to learn how to utilize it, to actually become the best that there is. And this is what I call or regard as self-actualization.
According to this idea, it would mean that all human beings are equal.
If you look at it from, again, a lower plane, but if you look at it from now a purely metaphysical, solipsistic perspective, there's no such a thing as human beings. The terminology that defines human being is actually fraught with all forms of limitations. So we must cease to see ourselves as human beings. Let us see ourselves as celestial beings, or pure intelligence beings. Celestial beings are people, we are told, for example, aliens, people who are very, very intelligent out there. We are those people. Mm-hmm. We are that. And let us also not believe in other people. Let us believe in ourselves. Let the I in me believe in I. And it is because of that belief that today I can come and showcase a book that I believe can change the lives of a countless number of people. Awakening Self-Mastery. I use this, I think last time I talked about my meditations. When I go to bed, before I go to bed, I usually go to YouTube, and I use sort of a mathematical formula called the fractal zoom. And I go and I turn it on, and I focus on the iteration, which can actually iterate hundreds of billions times without an end. It enables me to focus and refine my mind to a point where I have no distraction whatsoever. And with that, then I'm able to focus my mind into the infinite intelligence of my Maker. And I swim in that infinite ocean of my Maker, and I sap as much intelligence, as much knowledge regarding solipsism as is possible. And this is what has given me my doctoral degree This is what has given me the ability to write these books that I believe would be able to help people. Now, I'm not here to claim that I'm any special, that I'm actually so gifted that I am actually special, and therefore I have been endowed with things that other people have not been endowed with. I'm here to say that we are the same. That you, if you're an intelligent being, possess the same quality. But why, and this is the question that we started with, why do we have the differences? Why are some people suffering? Why are other people flourishing in, immense wealth? It is because of this doctrine. It is because we have, when I was in school, we used to read about Albert Einstein, for example, and we were shown, even today you read books, you'll be shown how he was a genius. And that's why he managed to actually make the discoveries that are changing the world every day. Okay? But my solipsism says that we are all endowed with geniosity. And I think this is very much in the line of what the doctrine of Jesus is about. Because the same Bible says that God is not a respecter of persons. And that implies that he cannot bless you and not bless me equally. If you can drive the best vehicles, a Lamborghini, for example, by virtue of being blessed, then it means that I can also drive the same, if not better. But why the difference? The difference is not in blessing. If it was if that was the difference, there would be no such wealthy people as those people who attend church every Sunday. There are some who even go almost every day to churches to pray. There are those who go to the mountains for 40 days praying. And I'm not saying that prayer is bad. All I'm saying is that you don't have to pray for what you've been endowed with. Doesn't the Bible say that God has blessed you with all the blessings on high, and there's nothing denied? If he has blessed you with every blessing available, then why do you need to pray him again to bless you on what he's already blessed you with? Now, this is solipsism, and this is where solipsism makes a difference. So solipsism, or a solipsist, believes that I have access to my maker through the act of my meditation. And not only do I have the power, the access to my maker, I am a procreator with my maker. And in my procreation, I then make the material sense of reality that the I in me, is experiencing right now. Now, if I want to change my tomorrow, I have the ability to change it. I'll give you an example of how that is so. Very simple. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this as an example. We were talking before this show, and I told you that I dwell in the UK, and I'm planning to travel again next week. So the kind of experience that I will have in the UK is that pertains to Britain, a first world country. But if I changed my mind and decided to travel to the Rift or some of the remotest part in Kenya, I would not have the experience of Britain there. Correct? Mm-hmm. I would have the experience of that reality that I've chosen, or the destination that I've chosen. Mm-hmm. So I have the ability. If I did not make a decision to appear in this show, I will not be here. If I do not choose to do whatever it is I will do tomorrow, I cannot expect to experience what I should experience if I was to make that choice, or choice dependent on that experience. That is solipsism. So solipsism is a doctrine that is so simple, but a doctrine that is so crucial, that is so essential. And one of the things that I like about coming to your show, Dr. Harry, mm-hmm. is the following that you have. You have a following of how many millions?
Across different platforms.
Yeah, across different platforms. Mm-hmm. Now, that is a very huge following. I don't have that kind of following. And therefore, even if I wanted to say to my followers or my fans, about this good gospel or this good doctrine, I cannot reach the number of people that you're able to reach. But I am so happy to be here. And I was so excited when I saw the reaction, the critique, the likes, the contradictions that arose as a result of our first episode. And they actually enabled me to go back and finish these 2 books so that people can understand solipsism, so that people can know that there is a way to awaken to who you are as, as the highest, to awaken to whatever it is that you would like to be, but not by simply relying on an external factor that is in control or is in charge.
Okay. Thank you for that submission. Thank you for the kind feedback. Let me ask you a question that can actually bring context in this conversation between solipsism and reality. In the sea, right? If a ship or a boat leaves the harbor,
yes,
and it knows that it's going to, let's say, for example, let's say South Africa from Mombasa, does the compass move the boat?
Yes, it does.
Is it the compass that moves the boat or the actions of the people?
No, it's the compass, because if someone is following the compass, that person, that compass is connected to the mind of the driver or the captain. And therefore, there's no way that that person will realize the compass going west and is going north and actually just follow it. And actually the compass going west and then decide to go north. He will follow the compass. So the compass, in a sense, is driving or is responsible for the destination.
But now the challenge is this person has the capacity to ignore the compass and go to the other direction.
Absolutely.
So who moves the boat?
No, listen, when such a person does that, he has chosen to learn through experience instead of learning through wisdom. If he uses wisdom, he will follow the compass. If he uses experience, he will have to follow the haywire destination, and will come to learn the consequences or suffer the consequences when he finds himself wherever he will.
Okay. The best explanation to complement some of the ideas you've shared about there being a world beyond us and you being a different being is an example that was given. Shidani have been exposed to so much content, I may not remember the accurate place I got this, of a car. Your car is stationary, but it takes you to get into the car, to give it direction, where you're going, whether to stop, when to move, how to move. And that explains your body. That's life. The soul inside you controls how you go, how you move, how you think, the decisions that are made. It's not the car that moves. It is the person inside the car, right? That makes sense.
It does make sense in a way. Something I would like to actually comment about that now that you've brought it is the aspect of, being a cyborg. In one of my books, I've published book yet. I've shown how when you enter a car to drive it, you become a cyborg. The car becomes a part of you, and that's how you are able to control it. It's actually not controlled by the body, it's controlled by the mind, because the mind knows where it wants to go. And therefore, it's able to then drive it, turn the corner, indicate right, slow down, accelerate, climb a hill, and all that sort of thing. Now, we are equally cyborg. Our mind is cyborg, and it adapts into anything that we present to it.
Okay.
The only danger is that when we let our mind go haywire, it becomes like a piece of land that is not tilled, which will produce weed. But if the same land is tilled and sort of food is planted, we then harvest crop. So we must be very careful the way we use our mind. And the only way to do that is to bring the education of our core aspect of our being, which is solipsism, mind, as the only reality, as who we really are. And I must, I think after my Roundtable conference at Zetech in February, Zetech University, Ruiru Campus, I wrote an article on the on the Saturday Nation, where I stated that the call that had been made as a result of the success of that Roundtable conference in metaphysics, whereby scholars sort of called upon metaphysics to be introduced in not only universities, in secondary schools, in primary schools, early years, and that sort of thing. And that's the importance of metaphysics in the life of a deep thinker, a seeker of truth, and a wayfarer that you are.
Okay, thank you. So two things before we close, and I'll also cross-reference some of the feedback from our audience. You mentioned Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein is a genius, as he's been described. I would describe him as a beneficiary, and this phrase will be borrowed from another philosopher, Jonathan Haidt. He's a beneficiary of the cortical lottery, right? His ability to process information. The difference between Albert Einstein and the next person is the capacity of his brain to process information. Like the parts of his brain that process information are probably bigger than the others who were in his age and time. All right? My opinion. Because I submit that as much as we are physical beings, you cannot separate a human being from the chemistry that makes the human being.
But up to that point, and the reason why I hesitated in answering that is the danger of the distortion of information in that regards. Because if his mind has the ability, had actually a larger capacity to process information and that sort of thing, why did he have to go to school? He went to school like anyone else. And guess what? When he went to school in high school, his lecturer actually called him a dog. He actually told him that he would not amount to anything and advised his parents to encourage him to take law instead of physics.
Do you know, personally, some of the subjects I hated with a passion in high school were mathematics and economics. But today, I don't think a day goes by without me processing information on economics and mathematics. And my explanation should be how it was presented to me at first. So the circumstances that would lead to Einstein being called, and I'm not parading myself as Einstein, I'm just giving an example. To him,
you are an Einstein actually in the past life.
Maybe. So now, the circumstances that will lead his lecturer to refer to him as such, it is because he did not fit the description of what the lecturer thought of him at that moment, and we are not aware of all the factors available, right? And later he comes to prove the lecturer wrong.
The point I was trying to make is that contrary to popular belief, Einstein was, in fact, if you read the history of Einstein, I have the opportunity to have gone through it. When he did not talk until he was 2 years old. He's believed to have had a larger head than normal. And his mother was afraid that Albert would not live a normal life, was not a normal child, but look at what he ended up becoming. What I'm saying is that possibly, when Albert, for example, when I talked about when he was 16 years old and he was seated by the fireside, he was actually working at a patent office because he couldn't actually get recommendation to actually become a lecturer of the university. And he was seated by the fireside one evening, and that's when he remembered the comic book that he had read at the age of 11. So you can actually see analytically that here is a man who, either by design or default, managed to sort of utilize the power of his mind. And as a result of that, come up with the discoveries and inventions that he actually did.
And now that you said that, it complements my submission at first, because I've also remembered that I've read something on Einstein by Thomas Sowell, a philosopher again, and he says that there's a pattern. For Einstein, as a late talker, other late talkers have also displayed characteristics of geniuses, right? There is one of the top mathematicians, a lady, from America, top mathematician who was a late talker, and the description for this, was that some parts of their brains developed later. And the other explanation, and this complements that, another explanation to this, the late talkers display of geniuses, right? But then again, in terms of presentation, some people have thought of this as a sign of autism, right? And Thomas Sowell says that after observing that, he might as well have come up with a regimen for treatment for kids with autism, knowing very well autism in this case. I'm not denying the existence of autism, but making that observation, he would have come up with a regimen to train or to teach to get money from parents who have children who are late talkers, thinking there's a problem with them, but chances are it's just a different development stage for them. So this complements the idea that it is part of his brain responsible for processing certain informations that gifts him and makes him better than other people.
A trait that we all have. But a trait, remember, there is, is it Joel Austin? There's actually this American preacher who came to Kenya and 2 weeks later died in a plane crash from America. And he was actually hosted by Jeff Koinange at the bench.
Yes.
And he told Jeff Koinange that the richest place on earth is at the grave, because a lot of people die without putting to pen and paper ideas that they should have actually whatever. And he actually said that he had written, I don't know, was 16 books or to that extent, a prolific writer. Now he was encouraging people to sort of write, to come out of their norm and sort of utilize the power that each one of them is endowed with. That example that you've given for autistic people is a typical example of the power that we have. I have seen, and most of the inventors, discoverers are autistic people. The reason for that is because they are so poor at everything else, but only very good on one thing. We see that as a bad thing, but that's a brilliant thing. Say, for example, a genius, or normal genius, someone who is good at computers, but you find, the sort of young people call them geeks. You will find that he doesn't even like going out to play. He wants to be in the house. He's actually sort of on the computer, and he can go very far and that sort of thing. And as a result of that, he becomes so good at it that he starts to invent sort of new apps and that sort of thing. So the perspective of our being is very unique. It is unique to our ability to achieve anything that we desire, but we have to focus on a specific item. Now, a very good example that I'll cite to you, when I was young, I used to be regarded, and I used to get a lot of caning by my teachers in primary school, where I was actually, my primary school, I started at a school in Limuru, a place called Riara. A school called Nyataragi Primary, one of those proper DB schools those days. And because I would actually sort of sit down and try to imagine, I would see myself like, doing this or being that in the future, I was called a daydreamer. But today, any motivational speaker, what they assault will tell you there is nothing better than daydreaming. Daydreaming is focusing on your mind, is actually seeing yourself the way you'd like to see yourself tomorrow. The only danger with daydreaming is when you daydream and leave it to that. But if you dream, for example, of owning a Lamborghini when you're in the next 20 years, and you see yourself doing that, and then you start thinking, now I'm gonna sort of create and increase, expand my business. I'm gonna invest in houses, properties, and that sort of thing, until you grow the empire to a point where one day you will have the money to buy a Lamborghini. So the perspective, it started with the daydreaming. Any kind of goal, any kind of dream is daydreaming, because at the moment it's not real. It's actually just wishful thinking.
You see, you've come back to my line of thought. We've met at a common ground. It's not enough to daydream. You cannot daydream the Lamborghini into reality. You have to come back to the formula to make it a reality.
Yes.
And that's where I agree with you that thought can be translated to reality, but you have to conform with the principles of reality.
It's a work in progress.
I agree. So now you cannot separate reality from imagination. And I subscribe, and I've recommended a book here called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. The first book that that was used to recruit me to reading culture. If you think, for example, of, let's say, this phone, for someone who does not have this phone, let's say, Ambiwe, this phone is X amount of money. There's two reactions. One, either, that's out of my league, or with the resources I can access, what is the most likely formula for me to get to this?
Correct.
Now, that is translating thought into reality.
Yes.
So that means reality does exist, just that reality is the combination of thought and the formula to actualize.
On a higher plane, it's actually a creation of reality. Because the moment I didn't have the phone, the moment I didn't have a phone, I didn't have that reality. I did not experience the reality of having that phone. But the moment I do go through the process you've just described, until the point I get the phone, I then sort of create that experiential reality. I experience that reality of owning a phone that just the other day was a mere dream.
So reality does exist. It's not just imagination.
No, but you've created the reality. If you didn't have the phone, that reality of you having the phone was non-existent. It becomes real from your imagination.
But if this phone is yours...
Can I have it?
Exactly. So now I want to buy it from you, but you give me a price, right? So my imagination, my thought is to own the phone. It already exists. So the difference between my ownership, the transfer of ownership from you to me, is the process of that transfer and the formula that I will use to transfer the ownership.
When
it already exists.
Yeah, let's actually, there is an experiment, and I'm very happy at the conversation. We can never, I think you have to sort of call me for another episode, because we can never exhaust this. Yes. But there is an experiment called the cat in a box experiment by, I forget the name of the scientist who came up with that thought experiment, where he set up a scenario where there is a box was put at that corner, and a cat was put inside the box. And after a while, a question arose on whether the cat in the box was dead or alive. And the conclusion by scientists was that the cat was in two states. It was both dead and alive. Alive. Now, the only way to determine the true sort of a state of the cat was through experiment, which is observation. Was through, sorry, not experiment, but through observation. So you would have to go, open the box, and see whether the cat is dead or whether the cat is dead. But before then, it is in two states, because it can either be dead or alive. This is actually now quantum science.
Okay. In the interest of time, I believe we'll have to go back to having another episode. But then again, I think we've answered some of the questions. I think maybe we should close for us with your thoughts on the idea of thought and attracting money. Money as energy. What are your thoughts on that?
My thought on that is equal to every other thought that I have. As the highest representative of my maker, I am endowed with abilities to experience any of my maker's qualities. For example, my quality, some of the qualities of my maker are that my maker must be gentle, generous, kind, humble, loving, harmonious, compassionate, patient, pure, perfect, wealth, and healthy. And therefore, if I want to experience the experience of his wealth, because I look at it from an abstract perspective, then I just need to focus upon that reality, to actually sort of call upon that experiential reality. Now, upon focusing upon it, then ideas will come on what I need to do. Just what as we talked about the Lamborghini, ideas onto how to sort of attract that perspective of experience. And it's the same with health as well. And the perspective of praying and believing is actually that, where you focus on the ideal object of your desire until it manifests. And therefore, anybody who would want to experience anything, for example, before I went to Britain, I had never experienced Britain. I had nothing special to want to take me to Britain, but I desired. And I remember when I was young, at the age of 14, I would tell my late brother, my late elder brother, that one day I want to live abroad, and I would want to bring my children abroad. And at the age of 28, when I finally got the passport, the ticket, and the invitation, and I went to live in Britain, my late brother called my sisters and told them, this is a dream come true. So that is what we need, that understanding of the power that we have, and then utilizing it meaningfully, even if we don't have the means at the moment, because we just need an idea. If I want the people who are wealthy, it's not that they met with opportunities right on the table, but they actually worked towards those opportunities. And basically, from a dream perspective, from a mind perspective, until it manifested, just as we are saying. So we do have power, not only me, we do have, Dr. Kingori, if you wanted to, really desired to live in America, you would work, and you would find a way of getting there. If you would want to sort of be one of the wealthiest people in Kenya without the corruption that we are saying, or shortcuts that we are saying, you would work from where you've started. And look at, I would like to sort of take an example of yourself. Years ago, when you were not where you are today, this wasn't real. You did not inherit this from your parents. You worked because you had a dream, you had a goal, you desired, and it has manifested. And this is the power that everyone has. And this is the gospel that we should actually sort of be preaching to the young generation, and also not just the young generation, to anybody who wants to become somebody.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mwai. Always good vibes, vibing with Dr. Joe Mwai. You can grab copies of his book. There's an introduction to metaphysical solipsism and the awakening of self-mastery. We're actually putting the link to Dr. Mwai's books hapa kwa description ya hii video. You can order them directly from our friends at Nuria. Italetwa in whichever part of the country you're in. Ukitaka ku understand deeper concepts za hizi, and please also make suggestions za other questions that we may have missed out on this ones. Nilikuwa nataka tuongelea psychedelics kwa sababu some of the things you've described zinaweza kuwa achieved na bangi from other circles. I believe that should be in our next conversation. Psychedelics and drugs that get people to experience the spiritual realm. Nilikuwa nataka tuongelee mambo ya deja vu, but hiyo tutaiweka hapo mbele. Alafu pia there's word that Dr. Mwaka could be coming back to our platform. Let's see if we can make that happen. But hiyo iko na mbwe hapa na pale. Acha tuone kama the team can help us set it up. Otherwise, see you on the next one. Asante sana.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Doc.
Indeed.